Howie's again. It's like Homer's The Odyssey. You're getting two epic voyages in the same day. The main reason for that is the previous one is very specific to Ireland, and I know my audience is all over the world. So, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the Irish thing, although I know most of you find it interesting. It was just a sort of a thing regarding the Irish aspects of this, and this video is more about the general thing of what's going on with the Rona lockdown and so on. It applies to all our countries and all our cultures and whatever people all over the world, our human race, or particularly in the West, who's been punished the most by it. Now, before I get to this, I want to draw your attention to the comments below. There is a link to an interview I did back in a while back with Neil MacDonald of Megalithic Tours in Preston in England when I was over there a while back before the Rona lockdown, and us talking about our favourite megaliths, and it turns out to be quite a lovely conversation. We had a few beers, and I think you'll really, really enjoy it. More importantly, can you thumb up and like the video, and especially subscribe to Neil's channel, because I'm going to be doing a lot more work with Neil MacDonald on megaliths and ancient sites in Ireland and everywhere else in the future, and there will be videos of me there. So if you don't miss them, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll put the link below. Very important. Another thing is I have the second documentary on the occult history of Europe uploading right now. It should be up before the morning on the Beyond Room 313 channel. So loads for you there to look forward to. I have been busy, even though I haven't been making too many of these videos. Now, I'm hearing reports from all over now that, particularly in Britain and Ireland, that everyone's wearing masks. Okay, that to see a person without a mask is now rare. This is, again, I told you why that's happening. People want this thing to end soon. Well, there's two types. There's one type that are absolutely loving it, the virtue signaling and all that stuff. The show off. They feel like they're part of the winning team. It's and the other side are people who are saying, look, let's do everything the government tell us, and eventually the numbers will go down. Remember flattening the curve? Remember that term? We got to flatten the curve. How it seems like ancient history now, and we flattened the curve, and guess what? They made the restrictions even worse everywhere. And if you can't figure out now that this C-19 thing is nothing to do with a pandemic, and it's everything to do with absolutely demolishing Western society so they can rebuild it in the way they want it, there's really no hope for you. There's absolutely no hope for you if you think this is about a pandemic. It's nothing of the sort. This is the silver bullet that they really wanted and hope to achieve with the climate change thing. They've got it now, this. But the thing is, these other people are saying, wear the mask, just do everything they say, and they'll end it really soon. But they won't. A lot of these are sex freaks. Why do you think so many of them are pedophiles connected to Epstein? They're being turned on. A lot of your politicians and senior civil servants and bureaucrats are being sexually turned on by seeing you, making you more and more ridiculous laws and you more and more obeying them. They're actually sexually thrilled. It's an S&M thing. And people in power are obsessed with sadomasochism. And I'll tell you, I don't know why that is. I think it's because they don't have any. I don't know what it is. They don't have normal thrills in their life. When I worked in Wall Street, I was working in one of the banks down there, and someone told me about a brothel that existed somewhere around Wall Street, an S&M brothel that was very exclusive and it cost a fortune to get in, and a it had this mad shit go. It was like it had all the prostitutes. Like people would ask for specialist things. So I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. This is the truth. Because it was confirmed in I think it was a John Ronson documentary or someone's documentary much later, made a documentary about it. But like wealthy Jewish guys could have the madam dressed like an SS officer, fishnet stockings and more, and put him in a little train. And they have this thing, this infrastructure would be unbelievable in this place. And you get into a little train and they push him along the tracks by calling him racial names, open up the train and then put him into a gas chamber. Or black men, wealthy, powerful black men who'd be made pick cotton in the fields. I mean, it's just one of these things that human psychology, you'll never understand it. And then, and this is what's going on with they're getting turned on. When they say we have, like there's no pandemic in Ireland right now, and I'm sure in your country either. And they'll say, and the numbers have gone completely down on all the charts. But they'll say if they get a little increase, they'll say it's deeply concerning. We may have to move to another lockdown of some kind. And they see they're actually being sexually excited by this. They're being sexually turned on by you being their slaves. And this is why there's all these senior civil servants, bureaucrats, newspaper editors, and politicians literally walking around towns and cities looking at people with masks on them with raging hard ons. They're being turned on by the power thing of it. And, and another thing is that, like, do as you're told in your town or we'll lock your town. Like, there's only three counties in the centre of Ireland. Places like Preston and Leicester in England are locked down, and it's like the other people. It's people in the towns that are not locked down. They're like, oh, we better stop this, because they'll lock us down next. They're being turned on by it. Now you're being bullied here. Now what's the thing about more than anything about a bully? That a bully will only stop when you say stop when you stop giving in to them. When you stop giving in to them, and this is where the parallel society thing comes in. It's the Soviet Union collapsed, just like the cultural Marxism in the West at the moment collapsed. When people just say this is ridiculous, I don't care anymore. It's not, you have to be bonkers to still believe this is real. Pravda, the Russian newspaper, towards the end of the collapse of the Soviet Union, when there was all kinds of problems, would be making it seem like everything was better than it ever was. Just like the Rona thing, it's like there's no coronavirus now in any real pandemic sense, but they're reporting it more severe than ever. It's the same thing, and people just say screw it. And that's how the Soviet Union collapsed. People just said screw it, enough, and they walked over the wall. And the same thing will happen with the Rona thing. Now it's people have to they don't have to confront the politicians. They walk away from them, no contact ever again, and the mass media. The first thing is, I would tell you, stop watching TV reports and stop watching the BBC and all this stuff. Like I always said, we got a hell of an education. We know the people who are our enemies now, the ones who would report us. We know the dangerous people in our neighbourhood, the ones who are out banging pots and pans, like they were told to and then told not to. That's the weirdest thing in the English thing, that they were out banging the pots and pans on Thursday night at 8 p.m. and when they were told not to do it anymore, they stopped doing it. I mean, it was like that's just fear. That's fear, and being told not to do it and then I'm not doing it. That would have turned on the bureaucrats in the UK. Whoa, I'm serious. That's what you're dealing with. That's exactly what you're dealing with. And in your country, wherever country, that's what you're dealing with. They're being turned on by it. And when you realize that the worth of your life and the survival of your culture is worth more than the sexual psychosis of a bureaucrat or a senior civil servant, that's when you'll get your freedom back. That's when you'll get your freedom back. And so the parallel society is the way to do it, is to spite and live in beyond it, without them. Make sure and check the minutiae of laws and see, are you really, really, really required to wear a mask? There are secondary laws and they are genuine, but they're often not, these secondary laws are often not enforceable. They're illegal. They're illegal quagmire. That this is why the police won't, in most cases, are not arresting anyone for not wearing a mask unless they start a trouble in a pub or in an off license or a shop. There's a bit of a argy-bargy thing goes on. Otherwise, they don't want to be involved in it because secondary legislation is near impossible to enforce. Okay, so, and a lot of it is covered under things like secondary legislation, and they're legal nightmares, very easily challenged in the courts. And they tie up courts, and judges and barristers and the law societies hate these kinds of secondary laws. They want. Now, a statute is a law, absolutely is, but it doesn't have the same thing as criminal law. It doesn't have the same enforceability as criminal law. And so, if you have a lung issue, you don't be wearing a mask. I mean, if I was to wear a mask, I'd die. I know I would. My lungs are not very good anyway. I'd die. As simple as that in no time. And even the thought of putting a mask on it frightens me. And so, I mean, and just, so am I safe from the law? I don't know, even know. Like, I'm not wearing a fucking mask, 'cause that's the end of that. And this is the way you have to switch off the TV and stop watching the reports and our counts and the numbers every day. And you got to get out there and communicate with nature and the world. And you got to express, especially those of you parents, to tell your children that this is not always going to be like this, and the world was never always like this, and it'll go back to what it was. It's because we're just going through a time when mad people are running the world, and all I have to do is point to the Soviet Union. Now, they're constantly changing the bar now. It just seems to me that to today's current left, anything that's left of Pol Pot is automatically far right. So, like someone who's like JFK would be considered an extreme Nazi by today's left, absolutely would. And this is how they are, and they're pushing it. And like I said, the right may be insane in 10 years' time, and then we can start like not giving them a hard time. But right now, it's the left who are completely insane. And they've now associated things like not wearing a mask and not believing in the COVID pandemic as being as dangerous as they say it is with being a Nazi or a white nationalist. And this is what they're trying to do. This is their old tactics, okay? That you're a far right wing Nazi if you don't want to wear a mask, or you don't believe that these laws the pandemic laws are necessary. This is what they're like. See, we live in an age where the so-called, in the past, we'd have like the counterculture, singers, artists, musicians, and they would be anti the establishment. We live in a very twisted age where all the ones who think they're counterculture are all defenders of the state, defenders of the orthodoxy. It's really amazing when you think about it. Like that joke I made, the woke folk song. That's literally what we're dealing with today. It's like in the 80s you would have people singing about songs about, people being unemployed by Thatcher and stuff like that. Now they're singing, wear your mask and do what the politicians tell you. It's what it's like now. It's unbelievable. And the counterculture today is, I guess, people like me and you guys who are just trying to understand what the hell is going on and find a middle path. And I'm not involved in politics. I mean, there's parts of elements of my political beliefs that would be considered left wing, and the only right wing thing that I'd probably would be I'm a believer in old fashioned capitalism, but I hate corporatism, and I'm anti death penalty. But otherwise, if you were to put me in the traditional spectrum, I'm centre left. But I'd probably be considered extreme right wing by many of them today, because I question the government, I question the media, I question university professors who are tenured, and haven't done any research work in decades. And this is what it's just unbelievable. And remember, these things are fleeting. These things change. I mean, I'm old enough to know what it was like in the past, and one day you will be as well. And some of you are the same age as me, or even younger, and still know what it's like, okay? But these things can change very, very quickly. And like this Rona lockdown came upon us very quickly, but it could also end very quickly. And the thing is if they, okay, they're fundamentally, these bullies in the bureaucracies, the mass media, and the politics are turned on by you cowering to them. Well, if you stop cowering to them and not giving a fuck, it's not that they will attack you, they will lose interest in you, because their psychopathic needs won't be getting the rush anymore, and they go, oh, what the hell with that? And they move on to something else. And this is why, like the Michael Collins thing, your greatest weapon is your refusal. The greatest weapon is your refusal. And you don't have to overtly go marching. This is an old left-wing rubbish thing, to get names and to like find people to spy on them. You can do it quietly in the comfort of your own home, in the privacy of your own car, walking in the park. There's lots of ways to get out of this. And I really do believe that if there was a supernatural intervention, it will be caused by the collective unconscious of people like us guys saying, No more with that shit. And that's what will do it. That's what happened. That's really what happened in Russia when you think about it. That won't. And that's what we aim for. Okay, so don't get. I know it seems like everyone's wearing masks. That's what I'm hearing from everywhere. Um, I've been. I won't leave the house now. I'm just staying inside for some reason. I don't feel like going out, and I've been basically locking myself away doing projects, and so that's it. So again, go to that link down below, right? Subscribe to Neil MacDonald's channel and thumb up that video. Then also later on tonight, go to Beyond Room 313 and watch the second part of my documentary series on the occult history of Europe. And apart from that, stay fucking beautiful. I love you all.